Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and back on February 6th, the Brooklyn Nets shocked the NBA world when they dealt Kyrie Irving over to the Dallas Mavericks. Now, this was huge for a number of reasons. Number one, of course, it set up Kyrie and Luka as a backcourt over there for the Mavs, and it seemed like maybe they could become championship contenders. That hasn't exactly gone to plan recently. I mean, you take a look at the title of my last video, which is that the Mavericks have been terrible, and you can tell it's not going super well. But another big reason for why this trade was huge was that it seemed to potentially open the door for a Kevin Durant deal. Now, nothing seemed imminent because rumors originally started that Brooklyn was kind of looking to keep KD through the deadline, try and convince them that, hey, we can still build a team around you in Brooklyn. And overall, after Kevin Durant wasn't able to get his way out of things following a trade request in the offseason, it seemed pretty unlikely that it would happen in just the span of a few days. However, as is usually the case with the NBA, we never know anything because all of a sudden, the day before the trade deadline, Kevin Durant was dealt over to the Phoenix Suns, his preferred destination actually in that previous offseason trade request, in exchange for a massive haul. Now, of course, Phoenix got a lot of the attention for this deal, which is completely understandable. They set up a championship contending team with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, and some solid role players alongside them after they got absolutely embarrassed in the second round against the Dallas Mavericks in that Game 7 loss. Phoenix had needed to make a big move for a while, and Kevin Durant wasn't just a big move, it was the biggest acquisition probably in the history of the NBA trade deadline. It's not every day that you see a borderline top 15 player in league history get traded pretty much out of the blue. So Phoenix got a lot of attention, which is once again 100% understandable, but this led to the Nets flying a bit under the radar when we talked about this deal because it's hard to really ever feel like you truly got the best value you could for a superstar caliber player like Kevin Durant, who's still in his prime. But at the same time, it did feel like the Brooklyn Nets did pretty much the best job that you could do of getting the value that you were looking for. They got a great package, which included Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, who they would end up flipping to the Milwaukee Bucks, 4 unprotected first-round picks, a 2028 first-round pick swap, and Mikal Bridges. And Mikal was immediately the piece that was most intriguing for me with Brooklyn in this deal. Of course, 4 first-round picks is amazing. Same with a pick swap, especially when you have a team in Phoenix that now has Kevin Durant and Chris Paul, who are both aging. But Mikal Bridges was more of a sure factor thing, someone that it felt like could potentially have a breakout in Brooklyn. Because he had been good in Phoenix, but he was mostly an off-ball 3-and-D player. He shot a lot of catch-and-shoot threes, which he was really good at. He shot 37.6% from deep in his career as a Phoenix Sun. He was also a great defender. He finished top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year voting just the year prior, and even though he wasn't playing quite as well defensively as that year, he was still a really high-level wing defender. But I felt like he had more game than that. In particular, in this season, the Suns had tried to integrate him a lot more into their offense, try and make themselves a lot more dynamic, and that led to him creating for himself a lot more, attacking the basket, taking more mid-range jumpers off the dribble threes, which led to a career high in points per game at 17.2, as well as a career high in 3.6 assists, both promising signs for his potential offensive upside. And the Nets seemed to realize this potential value in Mikal Bridges as a breakout candidate, because before he had even played a single game for the franchise, the Memphis Grizzlies at the deadline offered 4 first-round picks to Brooklyn to acquire him, and the Nets said no, which feels almost insane when you first think about it, because they had just gotten 4 first-round picks for Kevin Durant, never mind Mikal Bridges. But the Nets decided that one of two things. One, they thought he was too much of a cornerstone to let go at this point in their rebuild, or 2, that they thought he would have similar or even better value if he played well over this home stretch of the season. And to say he's played well is a very vast understatement because Mikal Bridges has not only broken out, but he has started to look like a potential all-star down the line and maybe even an all-NBA player if he truly reaches his ceiling. In his debut for the Nets, Bridges dropped 23 points on 8 of 18 shooting and showed a wide arsenal of shot creation off the dribble like he did at times this season in Phoenix. But just 2 games later, in his 3rd ever game as the new face of a franchise, the new #1 option, Bridges dropped 45 points on 71% shooting. Let's go with 8 boards, 5 dimes, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. It was a ridiculous performance that announced to the world, hey, keep an eye on Mikal Bridges and what he's doing over there in Brooklyn because he's doing something special, and since that game, he has not looked back. In his 20 games as a Brooklyn Net, Bridges is averaging 26.8 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, and 2.6 assists, while shooting 49.6% from the field, 41.2% from deep, and 91% from the free throw line. That's nearly 27 points per game on 50-40-90 splits. And I know some of you are going to say, oh, it's only been 20 games, But to even do something like this over the course of 20 games in a brand new scenario when he's never been a one option before is absolutely ridiculous. He has the 16th highest point per game average since the All-Star break out of any player in the league, and everybody above him is either an All-Star or was an All-Star within the past couple of seasons. Additionally, he has the 7th highest true shooting percentage of any of these players, meaning that not only is he in the upper echelon of scoring just an overall output, but his efficiency is also one of the best in the league. And he's doing this all without an elite score behind him. A lot of the other players in that upper echelon have high-level guys that can take some of the pressure off of him. And sure, Bridges has some solid players like Spencer Dinwiddie at times, Cam Thomas if he ever gets minutes, Cam Johnson has some moments, Seth Curry can go off for a lot if you need him to do so. But none of those guys are someone that I would call an elite scorer. And I'm not saying Mikal Bridges is himself. I do think he needs to do a little bit more before I put him in that category. But the fact that he's having elite score type numbers over this stretch without having anybody else to really take that pressure off him in a significant way is absurd once again in his first 20 games as a first option on a team. So let's talk about how Mikal is getting his buckets. And similar to the way he was scoring in Phoenix, he still is taking a good number of threes, although he's even upped the number to 6.6 threes a game. And he's knocking them down at a 40% clip, so he should probably even take more, to be honest. But he's not just taking catch and shoot threes primarily like he did in Phoenix. He's taking a lot more off the dribble threes, especially pull-up threes in transition, which continuously keeps the defense off balance because he knocks them down consistently, and you have to play up on him. The second that Mikal Bridges crosses half court, you have to play up because otherwise he can just step into a triple and knock it down right over you. And this plays well off of the fact that he's continued to develop as an aggressive ball handler with the Brooklyn Nets. They give him the ball and say, go ahead, cook. So he runs in transition. You have to play up on him to prevent the three ball, but then he can get right past you and get to the basket because he has like a legit 90-foot wingspan, it feels like sometimes, one that makes it really difficult to ever truly block him or contest the shot in any significant way because he can just go ahead and put it right up and over you. And he counters this very well with a high-level mid-range game too, something that he has continued to expand since getting to Brooklyn. And he does cite playing alongside Chris Paul and Devin Booker as one of the reasons why he's so invested in building this mid-range game up. And we saw some signs of it in Phoenix, but in Brooklyn he's brought it to another level, consistently going to pull up mid-range jumpers off the dribble, turnaround mid-range jumpers. If he gets in that mid-range area, he is lethal. So you combine an elite three-point game with a high-level mid-range game and an ability to get to the basket. There's no true way to consistently guard Mikal Bridges, and that's what keeps defenders so off balance. And by getting defenders off balance like this and continuously keeping them guessing, he's also gotten better and better at getting to the free throw line. He's exponentially upped his free throw attempts per game as a Brooklyn Net. Once again, citing the play of Chris Paul and Devin Booker, how crafty they were at drawing fouls, and saying that he wants to be able to do that as well, like he's been doing as a net. And that is a huge part of young players improving and becoming elite scorers, is finding ways to consistently get to the line and get easy points to get yourself in rhythm, even if your shot isn't falling. So he is an efficient offensive weapon from any spot on the court where he has the ball. And to make this even crazier, he has one of the worst shot qualities in the NBA. This means that his shots are highly contested. They're difficult. They probably shouldn't be going in for most players, but because of his elite touch, his ability to just shoot and score over anyone, he's knocking down these shots, a true hallmark of a high-level scorer. Alongside this huge offensive progression, his defense is still really good. Now, it's not as good as it was last season, but he still is a high-level wing defender that pretty often gets the Nets' most difficult matchups. And he's especially good at navigating screens, playing off ball, using that incredible wingspan to get in passing lanes and contest shots. His rim deterrence is actually surprisingly good for a wing player, partially because of that wingspan, which just makes it impossible to truly ever get a clean look at the rim if he's the one contesting it, unless you're like a 7-footer. So like I said earlier, while the defense isn't as good as it was last season, it's still good. And this is on top of him now being a number one option on a team, which makes things a lot more difficult. If you're continuously trying to lead your team to victory offensively, it's hard to ever be a lockdown defender on the other end. It's rare in the NBA, but Mikal Bridges, I do believe, has the potential to be amazing on both sides of the ball as he continues to get better and adjust to this new role that he's in, learn ways to conserve his energy, and also just as the Nets get more weapons around him to allow him to focus a bit more on the defensive end. All of this is to say that Mikal Bridges has been a monster since getting to Brooklyn and deserves more attention for what he's doing. He's not only shown all-star potential, but maybe even all-NBA if he continues this level of progression. Even though he's a bit older than some of the other young stars in the league, he's still only 26 years old. He's still a couple years away from what could potentially be his prime, and we've seen a lot of players peak in their early 30s even, which I think could be the case for Mikal as he gets more help from the franchise. The Nets made an incredible decision not trading with the deadline and holding on to him to see what he was capable of in an expanded role with all these new opportunities. He has thrived, and he has showcased exactly why the Nets, if any other GMs come calling, should immediately hang up the phone for basically the foreseeable future. It's so rare to find a player with this blend of skills that Bridges has, especially one that's just 26 years old, has never missed an NBA game, and is locked up long term on a contract that he's already outplaying in his first 20 games with the team. Despite trading Kyrie and KD meaning the end of a previous Brooklyn Nets era, the Nets have already found a building block for this new era that they're trying to create. 50, 40, 90 high-level defensive wings don't just grow on trees, yet the Nets are able to start their rebuild with one, and this is something that I'm really passionate about. If you're a team that is trying to rebuild, you need to do everything you can to try and get some type of building block in a deal with whatever superstars or high-level players that you're giving up to begin this rebuild. There are a lot of examples recently of it working super well. The Thunder getting Shea. Now he's become a 30-point per game all-NBA type player, and it has rapidly accelerated the rebuild timeline because of it. We're seeing it now with the Utah Jazz getting Lauri Markkanen, who's already an all-star and could maybe be an all-NBA player someday. We see it with the Pacers getting Tyrese Halliburton. The Pelicans got Brandon Ingram to start their rebuild, and eventually Zion Williamson. These players can be so hard to acquire, and if you get one from the moment your rebuild begins, you immediately have a focus and someone that you could work to build off of, giving you a clear direction for your rebuild, and just somebody for the fans to latch onto as you head into what could potentially be a bit of a down era for your franchise. The Nets did exactly that, bringing in Mikal Bridges, who is now the face of this new era in Brooklyn. I'm super excited to see the way that he continues to grow and progress his game, and the sky is the absolute limit for him. With all that being said, I appreciate you watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. Go ahead and comment down below. What do you think Mikal Bridges' ceiling is? Do you think he could be an all-NBA player someday? Do you think he could be the best player or second best player on a championship team? And also, if you were the Brooklyn Nets, how would you build around Mikal Bridges heading into this offseason and beyond? I appreciate you watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.